Hello everyone, this is Bentley out in Kent, Washington. I just want to give you a few updates. We're going to start with our Kribensis tank. As you can see here, I got some rehomed fish that you saw in quarantine before, which is some scissortail resboras and a few extra zebradanios that got added, just as some extra Deether fish. And I can kind of zoom in and see that Redeki Mini, but deep in the back there is actually mom, dad, and the babies, and they were super camera shy, but you can see like the coconut hut there on the left, they've just totally buried. So I caught him a little later with some camera tricks, and you can see mom showing off her colors. And in a minute, the Cory that's up there on the right is going to come down, just trying to scour for food, and she's been picking on him a lot. So we kind of moved him to a different place. It's easier bully, but you see the babies there just bouncing around. They're more free swimming instead of kind of skipping across the ground as they're growing up, and they actually are starting to look like little cichlids, and it's super cute watching mom and dad just usher them around the whole time in this tank. It's been a lot of fun watching them. And then what we're going to do is pop over. For those of you that watched for a little bit, you've seen my 150-gallon community tank, which is mostly my rainbows. And you can see this tank, a few fish came out of quarantine. And more importantly, in the back, you can see that Pocostemum stellatus octopus is really, really dense back there. And I actually did a major trimming on it. Um, just after a while, like 6 months of growth, it gets so dense that it's almost impossible for fish to move through it. So you kind of have to do some trimming. We'll talk about that in a sec. The fish that came out of quarantine, we're actually kind of zoom in. There's this little Boesemani boy, which as you can see, he's about middle of the tank. The other rainbows aren't like photobombing. He's kind of hiding and back behind the sword. We'll get to him if he comes back in a sec. But here, down on the bottom center frame, this is a Chilanthrina aleni wapoga. And then we get to the little Boesemani boy finally decided to come forward. You see that nice dark orange, beautiful blue up front. Uh, as soon as he got out of quarantine, and there's the Eleni coming back, um, it'll take a lot longer for the Eleni to color up. But when he got out of quarantine and came into this tank, he just really lit his colors up, and he's looking pretty phenomenal. And finally, the third rainbow that we had in quarantine is this little turquoise boy here, and he's just been as happy as can be in this big tank, just flying all over the place and loving life ever since he came out of quarantine. I kind of zoom in here just to show you some of the growth we've had to explain. Like in 6 months, these are Nana Petites and some Bucephalandrus minis, the super reds, and they were the size of a quarter or smaller when I got them. And you can see just how tall and big they've gotten. So to give you an idea, there's that big thing of Pogostemum, and then I'll show you like how much I culled out of my tank. On the left is all the stems that I literally threw away. You can see massive root structures, and on the right is all the stuff that I took to my local fish store. And then here's the shot after I replanted all the stems of my choice. As you can see, nowhere near as tall. But you have to understand, even the stuff I put in goes from my fingertips all the way to like almost my elbow for the most of those. And the one that's really tall in the back goes past my elbow. But thinning this out, you want to do after a certain amount of time. If it gets too thick, some of the vegetation below starts to die off as it gets so dense it's not getting enough light. And it was starting to choke out some other plants. So we thinned it down. Finally, we'll jump over now to the 90-gallon fry tank. I'm just trying to show some of the color of the Blue Hawaiian Moscow Guppies as they're growing up, even though my my cell phone does not love focusing at any distance. But you can see that guy in the back there in front of the Aponogetonum there. He's just getting this great, brilliant blue color, and some of his fins surrounded by that really dark, dark blue. And you can see like the old man dark blue betta, and then this huge long tail on this other male that we're kind of zooming in on, who's bouncing around. And then some of the rainbow babies just zipping around doing their rainbow thing. And speaking of babies, like just to get an idea of how many fish are actually in this tank, this is them right as we're feeding them. And you can just see like how crazy active these little buggers are during food time. And there's still probably a quarter of those fish that purposely wait down low for food to get into the flow from the hang-on back filter and pick at it down low. And you can see some of them there. But I mean, there's the bulk quantity of guppies and rainbows up top. But to give you a better idea of like feeding time of rainbows, let's jump over the big tank, right? And you can see like we got the glass up. My roommate's about to feed them just so that I could get this camera shot. And they're already like striking at the water with nothing in it, right? And just like a little bit of pellet in one side, and they're all just kind of going nuts. You can see my roommate kind of coming to camera. Sometimes we have to throw food in the very back, right by the hang-on back filter, so that it'll shove it down low. for all like the smaller fish, the danios and stuff, to actually get a chance because these rainbows are so boisterous, and that's just how rainbows are. They're very aggressive is the wrong word, but active eaters. And they've got those big bodies, and they kind of thrash and splash at the water. And I mean, they'll throw water a good 2 feet sometimes. Little splashes, mind you, not a lot of water, but they'll throw it pretty hard when they're snapping at the water getting food. And then you can see the gourami on the left, and eventually the angel will slide in. Those buggers are so spoiled they get fed by hand half the time, and they sit there and beg at the top of the water, and we almost always do it. Finally, you remember that little 10-gallon that was for my roommate, his little project? I got some shrimp in there, so we get some Bloody Mary shrimp, but also you'll notice some little bitty baby rainbows. These are Glossolepis wanamensis, and that's more commonly known as the emerald rainbow. Those come from Lake Wanam, which is they're really extremely rare these days, just because they're nearly extinct in the wild due to tilapia getting into those lakes. So tracking down really good ones, most of the ones that you get now are they're farmed in Florida ponds. They don't get as much of the beautiful green color of the long finnage. So finding really good bloodlines is very hard that come from some of the true wild caughts. I got a little lucky. I tracked some down, and they came in absolutely amazing. And the camera doesn't show it, but there's little green iridescence that makes them amazing. And I just wanted to show you that it's kind of the newest thing in the fish room. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have an awesome, awesome weekend.